So that really wasn't the career that I wanted. I really didn't want to spend my time drawing stuff hidden away in my studio cave that my kids really couldn't even see. I couldn't even show my family. I really couldn't put it in a portfolio and demonstrate it at shows. This guy said it was going to be in his private collection. I anticipated it wasn't like he was going to be printing it and trying to sell it at shows either, because it was a very specific storyline he wanted to do that was kind of racy, to say the least. I'm never gonna divulge any of the details, or let alone the names of the individuals who commissioned me. That's, private. It's between me and them. But just know I was at that point where I was starting to define what I wanted to do with this talent, or with this skill, if you want to call it one or the other. And I had to draw a line of distinction and say, this is definitely not what I want it to be. So I opted out of that one, and I started taking on this other commission. This guy wanted to do Medusa from the Inhumans. And I thought, well, that's fine. That's kind of superhero related. It's going to be fully clothed, hopefully. I can do that. And so that started off. I was starting to define how I wanted my commissions to go, how I wanted to set the parameters of it so I didn't have a commissioner kind of stepping on my toes all the time. And as much as I tried doing that, it still ended up happening anyway. I still ended up getting a bad taste in my mouth regarding working with people as a freelance artist. I set the parameter saying, basically, give me a costume reference of exactly the costume you want, because I know she has a long history of different costumes. So he provided an envelope, mailed it to me, whole collection of different images, and I thought, cool, great. But he had a very specific idea in mind. He wanted her like lifting up some slabs of concrete with her hair. I thought, okay. And I would send him poses. That was my process. He'd pick a pose, and I'd start defining the pose on the final page. And then he would start to draw issues with it. He would say, well, there's the hair. It looks too much like snakes. I said, it's Medusa. And hair either looks like ribbons or it looks like rolled locks, because it twists, it bends, it curves. He says, no, it's too much like snakes. Okay. But that was one of the specific notes he wanted me to do, though, was he wanted me to have all sorts of different things that the hair was doing and wrapped around things. And I thought, well, the moment you wrap hair or a body of hair around stuff, it's either going to flatten out or it's going to roll up thick. It's going to look like a snake. Realistically, though, my imagination just wasn't there for working with Medusa's hair, and it was still amateur by current standards to where I am now. It was very amateur, trying to figure out what to do with her hair and how to draw it. So I was still discovering how to draw hair myself, and so he had merit to what he was talking about. It didn't look right. So I'd rework it, and finally got it to a stage he was comfortable with it, and then I rendered it and colored it. And I thought, okay, that's the end of it. Now on to the next one, or now on to discovering what I'd like to do. And without any preset communication, I receive an envelope in the mail from the same commissioner, sending me money, saying like, okay, now I want another one and do it like this. And I thought, okay, I don't remember agreeing upon you sending me any money, because I'd personally like to agree whether or not I'm going to do the commission first before you decide to involve money. That's my preference. My preference still to this day is you don't own me as an artist. You can commission me to do the work, but you don't own me. You can commission someone to show up and as like a repairman and repair your house, but that doesn't mean you own them. It doesn't mean you get to tell them exactly which route to drive en route to your house, which hammer to use when hammering in the nails to your roof tiles or something. You cannot micromanage an individual. You can simply hire them. If you trust their talent and their work, then let them do what they do. And if you don't like the style of how they do it, then you hired the wrong person. And that's on you to do the research first before you just aim someone with their skills and their talent and their perspective, before you just aim them at the task. So here he mails me and says he wants another commission. In fact, wanted 2 of them. He wanted 2 more on top of the very first one that we agreed upon. So now here's 2 in the mail and a check to cover it. when I never agreed to that price, because now what he wanted me to do was even more than what he'd asked me to do in the first place, but he's pricing it as though it's the same thing. And as any artist out there doing commissions knows, it is not the same thing. Every commission is different. Well, that's one character with a background. Well, yeah. It's one character with a building as a background, or with the impression of a cityscape behind him. But if you want something that's officially like a Spider-Man cover with a full New York cityscape in it, that's entirely different. That's definitely not sketch quality. That's full-on cover detail quality. So I kind of hemmed and hawed at the idea, and I looked at it. My wife talked me into it and said, well, you know, it's practice at least. You do it. Do it for the money. He's already sent you this much. And I said, okay, cool. But the topic came back again to you have to agree upon the pose. And these two different commissions he wanted of Medusa. One of them was on top of a building, attempting to try to catch herself. And he said he tried commissioning someone before to do it, and he wasn't content with what they'd done. And that gave me a bad vibe out of the gate. I was like, oh, okay, so he already has an idea in mind that's too vivid for himself to actually get done with other artists. This could only cause problems. Because at that point, again, if they were a visionary, if they were truly an artist and they actually had envisioning skills, they'd be an artist. They'd be drawing it themselves. And most of the times they don't. And when they see their idea become flesh, they realize their idea is flawed. Well, my idea is not flawed, you just drew it wrong. And that becomes the reaction. Their idea is clearly perfect. Everyone else just can't draw it right. So when he's telling me he wants her like falling off a building like she's trying to attempt to catch herself, I think, okay. But one of the problems that came from our first commission together persisted with this one. He kept insinuating, or he kept insisting that when she controls her hair, she doesn't need to use her hands. And I said, agreed, she doesn't need to use her hands. It's all mental. True. But the character is acting. So just like I'm doing here in this panel, even though this character is unconscious, the character should be acting. The character should be doing something. And with acting, the power of the hands combined with the face tell a whole lot of story, to the point where you barely even need to see his legs and his tail over here. Everything about what his hands and his face are doing, and especially in panel 2, they should tell you what's going on. With one hand clutching the rock, another hand reaching out in front of him, and the panicked look on his face. He's either startled or he's waking up. He's seeing something happen. He doesn't want it to happen. Whereas in this panel, the acting that he's doing is he's unconscious. Is he wounded unconscious? Is he happily unconscious? He's definitely not nestled comfortably. He's just sort of unconscious. So when I was trying to draw Medusa, even back then I was still trying to assert that kind of acting chops on the character. So while she's using her mind controlling it, she needed some sort of heroic hand position with her hands. A sort of like, get them all, catch them, chase after them, you know, fly my little pretties, something along those lines. But he kept kicking it back. He liked the poses, he liked the pose. Don't do that with the hands. She doesn't need her hands to control her hair. And I said, I know she doesn't need to. So this kind of became a contention between he and I. I know she doesn't need her hands, but she needs to act. She needs to perform. But, again, that's what he says, and he's throwing money at me. Again, you don't own me. This is the art I'm creating, and this is what you're getting. If you want it better, if you want to tell me, hey, those hands don't look right. What do you mean they don't look right? Well, they're too big. Oh, okay. I'll shrink them down. So all I got to do is please him. He paid me. He's the one that wants the artwork. So, okay. So after much contention about her pose and everything, he kept changing the pose. He kept saying he wanted it a different way. And I kept saying, well, you're basically taking us back to square one. I already showed you poses. You already picked one. And then you start seeing it fully laid out, and then you say you don't like it. Then he tells me the hair looks too much like snakes. I kept telling him these are preliminary. I haven't rendered them. I'm just showing you the overall layout. They look too much like snakes. They look too much like ribbons. Okay, back and forth. They're either too flat or they're too much like snakes. So it did reach a point where I'd had enough of working with this guy. And I said, look, this was not a commission I agreed upon. This is a commission you sent to me. This is like bully. Just because you sent me money doesn't mean you get to tell me what to do with my time. Doesn't mean you get to tell me what to do with my pen or my pencil. It's not happening. It's done. And I said, I will gladly, because he already sent the check, and I'd already cashed it and deposited it. I said, I will gladly complete this commission the moment you adhere to these requirements. And the requirements were simple. Again, I listed it in an email, and I said, you pick the pose, you pick the costume. If you have to pick an environment, find a photo reference, find a drawing reference, even directly from another comic book, I don't care. Provide that reference, and I will continue this. But if you keep going back and forth, and you want to change the pose, you want to change the environment and change the hair, like it's never going to get done. So I thought that was the end of it. I figured I'd at least get a response back, but no, he was angry. He's angry and told me to get back on it and do it. He clearly decided to ignore the body of my email and didn't read it all. And so I let it just sit there. I ignored his email response back. And maybe about a month later, I get a phone call when I'm at work. Something about like some kind of like a customer complaint organization that exists in America. Some guy was investigating a claim that this commissioner who's commissioning me for this artwork is investigating a claim that this man created a transaction with me and I did nothing. That was the description. I did nothing. He has done nothing. Oh, really? I says on the phone call with this guy who's investigating. I proceeded to explain the whole thing, and I said everything that I'm explaining to you, because of our communications being email based, I can validate, I can verify all via email my communications with him, all of his kickback remarks, all of the contentions back and forth regarding hair, regarding hands not acting with the brain, and blah blah blah. I said, I can prove all of my side. What can he prove? He wants to prove I did nothing? Even in my email response back, I took my time. When I responded back to this investigator guy, because he gave me his email, so okay, send me the stuff. Even in my first response back to him, I sent every piece of artwork, every single sketch, every single thumbnail, all of that. I sent it all as an attachment. So here you go. Oh yeah, I did nothing. And like, there's a whole paragraph section for where you can complain about this, like person or this service or customer service or something. There's like a whole section. He could have written up a whole paragraph, and in just that paragraph space wrote one sentence. I paid Nick Fights to do a drawing, and he's done nothing. And even in that one paragraph, there was still like grammar and spelling errors that I'd been dealing with since the beginning that made me think this person who's commissioning me has got to be like 13 years old, because this does not the way this person wrote, I was like, this person's got to be 13. It sounds so like off the cuff, from the hip. It sounds so venomously childish. Every bit of rebuttal and argument, and it was misspelt. There was bad grammar. It was crazy. So lo and behold, after I respond back to this investigator guy, what do you know? Out of nowhere, I get an envelope in the mail with a very thorough letter saying, okay, Nick, exactly like this. This pose you originally did was fine. Put her on a rooftop. Just try not to make her hair look like snakes. Try to make it look like it's flowing hair. And this is how sincere I took this, though. I mean, between me cutting this guy off and between him responding, I was still studying references. I was taken to David Finch's style of rendering hair. He had a few Medusa pieces that I really liked. I had taken to studying Adam Hughes' work online, certain videos regarding like how hard it is to get an Adam Hughes sketch. I continued studying. I considered the very real possibility that I'm still just not rendering hair well enough to avoid the flat ribbon look and to avoid the rounded snake look. So I still took it upon myself to improve. So I finally get a response back from him saying, like, yeah, do the commissions like this. And I think, fine, okay, here we go. And he did pick two specific different outfits. So he wanted one on a building top. And he said, okay, well, let's scrap the building idea because there was like this antenna structure that she was breaking down or something. He wasn't happy about that. So, okay. He said, what if you just have her build like some sort of Kirby-esque piece of equipment? I said, excellent, cool, I like that idea. Because with Kirby-esque equipment, I can just design whatever I want to. If it repeats certain shapes and stuff, it's definitely Kirby-esque. Jack Kirby, that is, for those who don't know. So one pose was supposed to be her no longer on top of a building falling and catching herself, no longer her messing with some kind of antenna. This pose was now going to be she's building some kind of like death ray kind of thing, some sort of device. I thought, okay. The other pose he wanted was her sitting on the Inhuman's throne. Awesome, I can do that. And he even sent me a sample of exactly which throne he wanted. And I'm like, this was all I asked for in the first place. If you're going to be so friggin' picky about what you want to see, you need to be able to relay that. And he never picked a comic. He didn't say, like, you know, issue this or that, page 2, that specific throne. So this time he actually sent it all in an envelope, and I could finish it. Finished that whole commission up, sent that off in the mail, never heard word one again from that guy, and I'm content. And I told Lindsay at the time, I was so burnt out of drawing Medusa, and I still feel this way to this day. If I get a call from Marvel tomorrow saying, we will pay you to start on your first comic book ever, and I get all super excited about it, yay, finally getting professional work through Marvel, and they say, we need you to draw Medusa, I will hang up the phone. Just it left that bad of a taste in my mouth. And then I see the Inhumans TV show or made-for-TV movie. I don't even know. I haven't seen it yet. I've seen advertisements for it. I saw that coming out, and I just chuckled. Well, I'm not giving that a shot. I've heard from some people, as it comes to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, I've heard some people officially say it's their one miss so far. Their one flub, if you will, of lacking in success. One bad follow-through. It's not bad. You got a pretty good record so far. So although that was kind of a bad experience with a commission for superheroes, it didn't exactly turn me off of working freelance. It wasn't the last time I've taken on commissions. In fact, I've grown quite a bit since then for taking on commissions, and that was one of the worst commissioners I've had to work with for the sake of commission. I mean, I'd done other stuff too where I'd switched up my drawing style. I went back to doing Illustrator style stuff, so I did drawings of people's dogs, just black and white illustrations of their dogs. This one girl out of this one friend of mine, she was a fellow employee from Medieval Times. She gave me like a whole collection of black and white photographs, and she said she always knew one day these photographs would fade, and she wanted some kind of artwork to basically immortalize them. And she asked me to basically draw them. I thought I was very flattered to try to recreate images of her family and try to recreate them endearingly too, because when it comes from a black and white photograph, any kind of photograph, people aren't really thinking of it always as a lasting image. They're not always thinking like when this person's old and dying and on their cancer deathbed, they're never thinking like the shot from their 12-year-old years are going to really truly define them, or the years when they just got married are going to truly define the moments when they were really happy in life. Barely anyone thinks that. They're just like, oh, this was just some picnic we were on that day, and don't we look happy right now? Let's take a picture and immortalize how happy we are. So I took that challenge on of trying to recreate these moments. I'm really trying to capture the impact of these moments too. So when I decided to omit certain background elements to just push the character of her family forward, that was part of my focus too. And it did help, I feel, in some of my storytelling with my artwork. With comic books, you have to tell a story in every single image. You do judge a book by its cover. That's a reality. And comic books thrive off of that reality. They know they're being judged by their cover, so even their cover has to have a story. It's just one image. You got one chance. Someone glanced at your book. What is on that cover that's going to make someone go, ooh, and pick it up? And every single page that follows, every single panel in the pages that follows, obeys that exact same premise. Now that you have the book in your hand, you turned a few pages just to give it a sample page turn. What's in here? What am I looking at? What's the story? If all you have is one panel to impact somebody, and it's a boring talk panel, It has to be impactful, even if it's not dynamic. Such as my sleeping, passed out character in this panel. It's not dynamic by the way that this person's doing something in forced perspective, or it's not exactly jumping off an airplane. He's passed out on a rock. But the panel has to read as dynamic. There has to be something impactful there that says, pay attention! Look at this! There's something to see here! Something going on below the surface. Get it? The brine underwater? Below the surface. So the story with this panel, as impactful as it is just the sun beaming into this very dark environment. This very unwelcoming, shadowy environment, and there's just this light beaming into it onto this unconscious form. And so it's got to be informative, and at the same time it has to raise questions. It has to pique their interest. They have to be intrigued. Why is this character passed out? Why is this character laying on a rock? Why does the door look like it's closed, if that is a door? Or is it makeshift? Does it look like a pile of rubble? Why is it this way? And it has to intrigue them to want to know more. It has to intrigue them while at the same time telling them enough that yes, there is in fact a door, there is in fact light behind it, it is in fact makeshift. Would this person have barred themselves in? Ooh, question. We have to read on to find out. So you have to tell a story in a panel. And taking on those commissions of drawing her family's portraits, I kind of had to do that. I had that challenge of taking what already told a story and driving that point home just so it was unignorable. It's just right up front, right on Main Street. So there were pictures of her sister's wedding. There were pictures of, I believe, great aunts and great uncles on like a porch. Like an old farmhouse or something. There's a shot of, I believe, her grandpa in a photograph. And so those took a few years, and I think I initially started on those actually when I was working on Welcome to Reality. So I'd actually started on those, and she just kind of gave me the envelope to just sort of say, like, over time, when you get some done, just send them to me and update me. I was like, okay, cool. So that was one different aspect of working on a commission too, is I was able to work at my own pace. As time went by, if I had time to sit down and draw, I would sit down and draw and just start fulfilling these different illustrations. I made one mistake before when illustrating someone's dog. This was like a big mastiff. I don't think it was a full bull mastiff, but it was just a mastiff. It's a pretty big dog. It was an awesome picture of it laying down. And I envisioned this, like the way she wanted a drawing of it. I don't know why or for what reason, but I thought the way she was so endearing towards the idea of getting a drawing done of her dog and making him memorable, I thought he had passed away. So I drew the dog on what looks like this soft kind of cloud. This very painterly illustration. So a very soft edge around it, and the dog's fur and everything didn't read as a harsh fur. It was just a very soft glow to it. But I tried capturing all the personality in the shot that she gave me, this sort of big, dopey, happy galoot. She was very happy for it, but she responded back. She was like, her dog's name was actually D-O-G. So it wasn't dog, it was D-O-G. She responded back. She's like, why does D-O-G look like he's dead? I said, he's not. She said, no, he's not dead. I said, oh my God, I'm so sorry. I felt so awful. Here I'd made this beautiful illustration to like memorialize this wonderful dog. And I met D-O-G. He was a cute dog. Big, cute dog, but like one of those big dogs that still thinks they're a lap dog. And I'm definitely a dog person, not a cat person. No offense to you cat people out there, because cats love me. I don't know what it is. It's like cats know when someone's allergic. And it's not that that's why I don't love cats. It's just I prefer dogs more. We've had a cat before. I have no problem with cats. So I felt so bad. Oh no. I drew D-O-G to look like he's on a cloud and he's dead. So as a quick save, as a happy little accident, I quickly penciled in a watery, wavy shoreline behind the cloud. And then as the cloud looked like it kind of rolled up into the distance behind him, I just added, anyone that's ever been to like Lake Michigan during the wintertime, you've probably seen the orange erosion fences they put up there, I guess. The fence that helps prevent the wind from eroding. It also helps the snowbanks, prevents the snowbanks from building up certain places. I just sort of drew one of those, broken and kind of leaning over and kind of sagging, just trailing up and over the hill into the distance. So there, he's on a beach somewhere. He's just enjoying some sun. So I felt better. This guy was so embarrassing. I didn't mean to make it look like your dog was dead. It's been so many years at this point, I don't doubt DOG actually has passed away, so she at least has that. She could always go in there and erase the shoreline if she wanted to. There, so he is on the cloud again. But over the course of those years, I've done different odd jobs. I've done CD covers for hip-hop artists like Clifton Durrell, back when he was doing his persona of Kill a Cat. I don't feel like I did the best job. I even asked one of my buddies to help me out with it. I think I was going on vacation at the time. He helped do the rest of the graphic design stuff to it, whereas I did the initial drawing for the character on it. I've done a different cover design for a rock band, as well as like playbill posters for them. I'm trying to remember what the name of it was. Divine Riot, I think is what it was. As a independent garage cover band, I really didn't know their music, but I got the scene. I understood the demographic. I was like, I'm a metalhead, I get it. And so I photoshopped together one of my favorite graphic designs I've ever done, and I've since lost it on computers years ago. But it was this cool skull with what looked like it had a flaming halo around it, at the top of its head. And the flaming halo had this reflection onto the skull. And the skull was so dirty and so grim looking, the way I'd touched it up, it almost kind of looked like it was chrome. Like it was almost reflecting the light of the actual halo too. And then I put like all the playbill stats around it, such as like, this Thursday at the boiler room kind of stuff. But drawing the Medusa commissions, they taught me a lot about being a freelance artist and what I need to do to establish boundaries and borders. And that definitely helped me when it came to trying to draw like logos for people. All too often you hear friends saying like, I'm starting up a company, I need a logo. And they start to tell me what they are, what their name is. And I think you need brand recognition, not a logo. But that's what the amateur mistake is. People assume that by having a logo you will create brand recognition. That's not always the case. Brand recognition is what you can get from a good logo. But it doesn't mean starting an insurance company needs a cartoon character. And some places can succeed. You've got Illinois, you've got the General Auto Insurance, so here's this 3D animated General character, and that kind of worked. Because the name of it is the General. It's based on a physical character, the General. But if you try doing like body massage boot camp, okay, do you really want like a drill sergeant kind of character to advertise your body massage place? Probably not. And yet, I need a logo, I need it drawn like this. So I've just reached a point where I've done enough logos for people over the years that I just don't do them now when people ask. Could I talk to you about designing a logo? Nah. In fact, when I do follow through, I follow through with my contract real quick. They drop communication. Because they always think, because you're freelance, they always think they can just play stuff by ear and allow themselves to be shady, and that because nothing's on paper, they'll still come out on top and try to flex and abuse the system to try to get what they want out of it or get more. So when it comes to logo work, they're always like, I want this really high quality logo I can use multiple times over for the rest of my life. What? You want $50 for your work? Ugh. Well, that's the reality. That's how they treat you. They treat you like you're robbing them by giving them some sort of eternal piece of artwork they can reuse for business, where they will clearly profit and market off it. And then you want to be paid your deserving price, and $50 is way low. That's just me throwing out how unrealistically low they want to pay you. Like, ugh, well, it's just a drawing, like coloring book stuff. Ugh. $50. Ugh. Okay. Say no. You'll either keep going on without a logo, or you will eventually find someone who charges you somewhere around $1,000 and makes you sign something, so like every 5 years you have to renew your license with that logo, otherwise you lose it. Because realistically, that's what it's like. Like the rights for Mickey Mouse runs out eventually, and someone has to rebuy the rights to Mickey Mouse. Alright, so far, I'm pretty well done. You can now look into the background here, and I can show you. You can see how much more crisp those shadows are. They go right out to the actual edge. See if I can bring my light in. So the shadows go right out to the edge of each one of the lines. And there's still some roughed up lines that are there for distress, like this one here, this one here. They're there just to sort of add distress in the rock face. And then to compare that to the rock faces down here, there's still more work to do. So that should about do it. I'm thinking about calling this series of live stream, or these series of videos, I'm thinking about calling them Drawn-to-Life. It's just me talking life and drawing at the same time. So this is me inking the very last page of issue 3, even though it's page 1. I inked it backwards. I started at 24, went back to 1. So issue 3 is going to be a big 24-page turner. I'm really excited about getting it out there. So thanks for stopping in. I hope you enjoyed the video. I plan to post a whole lot more soon. Feel free to subscribe, add a like, help us get some followers, share us on Facebook, share us on what other platforms you might have. I've only got Facebook myself. I've got a Twitter account, but I'm never really on it. Never ever use it. Thanks for watching. Again, this has been Nick Fights at Lead Base Studios.